same as Mr. Gary.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think you have enabled your videos because I don't hear anything from them. So before we start.
I have. Hello, Mr. Erasmus.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Good. I'm getting you now. Yeah, good. So
welcome and good evening.
Yes, I'm on now. Yeah, I can get you too. Good evening to everybody in the house.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think one other person was trying to get on. I don't know who that was.
Yeah, Mr. Fidelis has going to join us. He's inside.
Who?
Mr. Fidelis Asongafa is inside.
Okay, you see him?
You know, he left again, I'm sure.
Okay, all right. So I guess, Stephen, you can take over the agenda and then we can start. I don't know how many hours you have allotted for this particular meeting, but
well, I left it open. Just okay. when we finish, when we run up with the presentation, that's it. I didn't kind of, but I mean, my program is open to host more than 2-3 hours. So
okay, all right, good, all right, that's fine. So I just wanted to make sure that we are not, having a time constraint.
No, we're not. We're not. I first of all, I want to appreciate you for actually, squeezing off time to actually get to this. The summary of Mutangane Waste Management Project, which we are trying to summarize and submit to ASDEM. It's been long awaited, and I think everybody's anxious to know what we've done behind the scene. So I don't think we're going to follow the formality of praying or not. I think since the three of us, we don't know about we don't want to be cut short by internet while again. So let's go straight to the point. At least you just take over and present the kind of the way the whole thing will be structured and how we're going to present to ASDEM and how it's going to be presented. I mean, from there, ASDEM will take and be able to pitch it to the council or to the Mutangane population, if that will be acceptable or not. At least we'll guide them all through. So that's it. And then I think Mr. Erasmus too, I think he must have prepared something. So we'll just go to touch base and see what we have at hand.
Thank you very much. I would think, after we go through this, you and Erasmus can then condense a 2 or 3 page summary. Because with these things that you present to the group, it becomes counterproductive when you have all these huge manuscripts, presented, and then it clouds the whole intention. The details are left with us to go through. But it's to condense that and then put it in before them so they decide what actually path they want to take.
That's true.
I hope we are all on the same page with that.
Yes.
So you and Erasmus will prepare the executive summary based on this meeting.
Okay.
Now, what I wanted us to do was that we've agreed and came up with a planogram.
Yes.
And in that planogram, it was going to be the path, towards realization of this project. So what I did now was to put that planogram in a PowerPoint, that would allow, you and Erasmus, to do an executive summary based on the bullet points that are going to be in the presentation. Erasmus, can you read my screen?
Have you started sharing? Okay. Yes,
I'm sharing already. I don't know if you're reading you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. I just have it captioned.
I can read your screen, sir.
Go ahead. Okay. I have it captioned as the waste management in Mutangane. Like we said again.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, good. Like we said, okay, good. Like we said, this was going to start on the planogram that we're going to have education, and community awareness. And that education will be in the form of creating flyers, information, making information that is so easy for these folks to understand, in terms of like photos, and making them very, very concise. So it's not, when we talk about flyers, it's not, going to print a 4-page flyer. A 1-page flyer can, in a way, encapsulate everything that, the community needs to know and what they stand to benefit, with this initiative. And then we'll have to find a way now to partner with ASDEM, to partner with schools, churches, and other civil organizations, so that they bring awareness collectively to the project. And then from there, since you're going to do some data collecting, you can see exactly the extent of community buy-in into this whole thing. So we had initially said, that, the collection which we're going to make our way to the community would be a door-to-door collection of waste. And the waste will be segregated at the site. So when the waste are collected, the homes or businesses will have two receptacles. You have one for the organic waste, and you have one for the non-organic or the biodegradable waste. So right at the site of the waste production, it's segregated. And why I'm stressing on this is that I've looked at models, I've worked with models where, they did a collection to a point and segregated, and this segregation at the point of collection, and segregation at the point of collection was one, cost-effective and more practical. And I'll go into detail to explain that. If you just collect the trash without being segregated to a central point, what happens from experience is that within a short time, that point is overwhelmed, right? Because you have people dumping everything, chairs, auto parts, everything. They become overwhelmed, and segregation becomes very, very, very difficult, and you don't have any control. But where, it is done on the source itself, when the collectors come in to pick, they're picking up, or there are two collectors. One is picking up the degradable waste. One is picking up the non-degradable waste. And they will now, move from door to door doing the same thing. When their receptacle is full, they move to the transition station. In the transition station, you have two large receptacles too. They dump, this one dump it in the organic side, and this one dump it in the non-organic side. At the end of the day, the large receptacle now is carried by the truck to the processing site. Nothing stays in that transition station. Because another experience is that if the receptacle stays in the transition station overnight, what happens is that people come in to dump trash in there overnight. So you don't create that room to turn the transition site into another trash collection area. Okay, so every home and businesses, like I said, will have the two receptacles, one for organic and one for biodegradable. So now, based on the initial outing, we have to decide whether or not the trash is going to be collected once a week or twice a week. Those are all the things that when you all do the survey on the ground, you'll be able to come up with what will be more practical. Whether it's twice a week, 3 times a week, once a week, I don't know exactly, but those are things that can be done. Now, when the waste is collected, it's taken down to the transition station. I just want to okay. The transition station will have a large receptacle. This one sometimes, it will contain about 5 or 6 tons of trash because it has a built-in compactor in it. So you have one for degradable, which is the organic waste, and you have one for biodegradable, which is the inorganic waste. Now, this is what we call the roll-off, roll-on truck. So what happens is that the truck comes in, drops it at the transition station, and at the end of the day, the truck comes back And then there is a slider, it rides up onto the truck, and the truck now takes it to the transition, to the processing station. So you see, wherever we have the transition station, there's nothing there except these two receptacles and people guarding it to avoid people coming in to, dump things that are not necessary. So at the end of the day, when the truck pulls up the biodegradable waste, it's taking it to the processing station, and the non-degradable waste is taken to the processing station for these things to be processed separately. So you see exactly that once you segregate it from the site, it is very easy downstream to bring down the trash to, where it will be used, it will be useful. Rather than having one area to dump the trash and then sit back to segregate it. So that, in a way, addresses that issue, and which will be also a very strong a very strong point making across when during the education process, so that there is a total and a complete buy-in by the community that, that is the way to go. Now, at the transition station, like I said, there will be two bins, which is one for the organic and one for the non-biodegradable. At the end of the day, the truck now will come and take it to the processing station. The processing station would also be the site of our operation. That's the site, as Erasmus has suggested, we're going to have the demonstration farm. That's the site where we're going to grow the black soldier fly. That's the site where we're going to process and bale the inorganic waste. That is the plastics and all those things. That's the same site. We're going to do that. So now you have to look at an idea now based on these things that we have enumerated, that again, we have to look and work with the council so that they can concede a reasonable site where, this can be, practical. So it's not going to be a site in the middle of town, as you know. It's going to be difficult because of the congestion, and then the smell, sometimes that might emanate, becomes very difficult. Expansion of the operation down the road becomes difficult. So definitely you need something that, would allow, expansion of the operation. So I just wanted to, encapsulate this process. Now that we have segregated the waste, we're talking now of the organic waste, because that's the one that has what we call economic value, the organic waste. But then we know that, the waste is a serious problem in Mutengene. And if you look at it, majority of the waste generated is organic waste, about 80%. Is organic waste. The rest are inorganic. Now, maybe because of standard of living is increasing, probably that balance is tweeting maybe about 60-40, but I don't think it's gotten to that point yet. I think most generally, and Erasmus will bear me out probably from his preliminary feasibility studies, he will come up precisely with exactly how much of this waste is organic and how much is biodegradable. But generally, if you look at it from theoretical studies of developing countries, it's about 70-30, all right? 70% being organic, 30 being non-organic. So this serious problem we have with organic waste, which is what's caused majority of the nastiness, the flies, the smell, and all those things, we have found a way now to address it by, assessing this organic waste and then using black soldier fly to process that waste. And why black soldier fly is unique is that it has the capacity of reducing the waste to 80%. What I mean is that if you put in, let's say, one ton of waste, right, which is about 1,000 kilograms of waste, What we're saying is that the black soldier fly would eat and reduce it, and what you have left will be about 2,000 kilograms. So it is a very, very efficient, natural way of actually processing organic waste. And that, what is left, in a way, it's not waste. What is left now is what we call frass, which is the organic fertilizer. That can be processed further and used downstream. So you see, in real sense, the conversion rate of organic waste is 100%. Because in that particular waste stream, nothing is wasted. It has a product value. And it also has a waste to biomass ratio of 25%. What do I mean by waste to biomass ratio? By this, I mean, if you look at the conversion rate in terms of value of biomass, normally a biomass ratio of 10% is good. But here we have a biomass ratio of 25%, which means that it takes the waste, process and convert it to something that is used, which in this case, the larva itself has an energy value of 25%. Okay, I'll give you an example. A cow has a biomass ratio of 3 or 4%, which means that if it eats all the grass and everything, right, it would actually say for 1,000 kilograms of grass that the cow uses, actually what is getting converted is about 300 grams to protein. So that's what we talk about, the biomass ratio or waste ratio. But here we're taking the organic waste ratio, and it's about 25% when it comes to that, which is excellent and makes it a very good avenue to process this organic waste that seems to be, a recalcitrant problem in most developing countries, in growing cities and urban areas. It is a very big problem, not only peculiar to Cameroon, but from my experience and travel, it is a problem in most developing countries, because the waste system is not efficient, is poorly funded, and lacks the expertise and capital to actually efficiently move and process the waste. So this becomes a very natural process of addressing that particular pressing issue. Now, why do I look at biomass, the black soldier fly larva, as a viable alternative? It is a viable alternative because you can monetize it, and it has been monetized. In that, the process itself can be engineered. What I mean is that you can look at it from beginning and know exactly from start how many kilograms or how many tons of black soldier fly you're going to generate at the end of the day, how much waste, organic waste, you're going to use at the end of the day, and exactly how much you're going to use to convert to animal feed at the end of the day. So it's not like any business model where you have to guess. You would know from beginning, when everything is engineered, you know the input, the exact input and the exact output. So that's why I said it's an engineered facility. And then using this engineering method, we're going to utilize local expertise. So we'll try to make sure that most of what is needed is something we can adapt to the resources and availability in Mutengere. So it will require us bringing in some of our local technicians, our local engineers. We put heads together and see how we can, create the feeding bin, the mating room for the black soldier fly larva, the processing unit, and what machine we have locally we can adapt to actually use in processing and making the chicken and the poultry feed. Secondly, from all models, it is economically viable. So once we get it ready, you can make money out of it. Now, in terms of it, because we try to make it local, the scaling it, that is moving it from point A to a bigger distance, will not take a problem because it's already engineered, so you know how you're going to scale it. So if, let's say, you're getting 2 tons of waste a day, so you can work based on that 2 tons of waste that you have a day. And if the waste now increases to, let's say, 100 tons, you can scale production to 100 tons. So that's the flexibility it has. And 2, the capital cost, again, is minimal because everything will be sourced locally. So it's not like something that you're going to start looking for funding for machineries overseas, funding for raw materials overseas, that requires capital and foreign exchange. These are things that you can really source locally. So in terms of operating costs, it is feasible because most of the capital and what is needed can be sourced locally. It doesn't mean that there will not come a time when these things can be sourced overseas. It can. And secondly, the product is such that it can also have export market or export potential, depending on whether our operation is going to be based on acceptable international standard, which at the time when this thing goes into play, we want it to meet international standard so that part of the products can be now sold overseas to gain, to earn foreign exchange. So that's the flexibility it gives, to the whole operation. And thirdly, the revenue stream is enormous. One, that when you get the black soldier fly larvae, you can defat it because normally in the process you have to dry it a little bit so that it doesn't spoil, because we don't have any other means of storing the fresh ones. So you can defat it, and the oil is needed by cosmetic and pharmaceutical companies. All right. Then the black soldier fly itself becomes a source of protein to make fish feed. And we know that the fish feed, the major thing on the fish feed is the protein content, or the crude protein content, which I think most of the time is about 42%. You use it to prepare poultry feed. Poultry feed, the crude protein for poultry feed is about between 18 to 22%, depending whether it's the grower, the layer, and the chick. And then you can use it to prepare livestock feed, where the crude protein content is about 8 to 12%. So you see that all the revenue streams you can use now to prepare that. So that's a long stream, depending on where we want to specialize. We can decide and say, well, you know what, based on what we see and the market circumstances, we're only going to concentrate on the poultry feed. Or we're going to concentrate on the poultry feed, the pig feed, and the fish feed. I don't know. That market is something that, through the feasibility studies, you are able to discern and know exactly where to, focus all the energy and get the revenue. Then the waste from the black soldier fly larvae itself is what we call frass. That is an organic fertilizer. All right. And there are 2 ways we can process that, and which or what I'm doing, I suggest we use the natural way. The way is that after the frass has been dried, right? It is bagged and pelleted. The soil remediation level is about 70%. But if we subject that same frass to vermicomposting, right? The richness is about 100% and the value is twice. What is vermicomposting? Once that frass is made, it is stored in a special holding area and is fed with earthworm. And those of you who know that the earthworm now will now help to reduce that this thing into finer particles, and it also excretes certain enzymes that helps to increase the richness of the soil. So at the end, you have a wonderful composting, a wonderful organic fertilizer that you can either pellet, put it in a bag, or you can, bag it in powder form, depending on how well we feel the bagging we do. Thirdly, you know that as the black soldier fly larvae feeds on the organic waste, much this organic waste, for us to feed it to the larvae, it has to be crushed. It has to be ground. The particle size has to be reduced, just like biogas. It has to be reduced. Once the particle size is reduced, it is used to feed the black soldier fly larvae. However, once it's being fed, there is liquid that is emitted during that process. That liquid is collected, and that liquid becomes what we call your concentrated organic fertilizer. All right? So you dilute it into 1 to 4. So you dilute 1 liter with every 4 liters of water, distilled water, to get your liquid organic fertilizer. So that's another revenue stream that you potentially can generate from this. And if our standard, if we meet the what to call the international standard of operation, we can now look for outside markets where they come in, they inspect the processing facility and say, yeah, it meets the standard, and therefore we can accept your product as part of those standards. And that's where you're looking at potential now for revenue, external revenue. Okay. When we provide this summary, it is important for us to address the management ability. That we know very well that in developing countries, what has to happen is that management is poor, it is not transparent, and therefore it becomes subject to failure, especially where such management is totally in the hands of the public service. That is whether local government or state government or federal government. The extent and degree of efficiency is poor. So what I'm looking here, and as you do the survey, is that one, we have to look at the importance of the fee for service in collecting the trash. Why I'm saying this is that I will only aspire to models that have worked. And I will tell you models that have failed. And we know very well that, the collection of trash concentrated in the hands of the municipality, where the individual have no concern. All he has to do is that they come and pick up the trash when they want, has not worked. One, the municipalities are poorly funded. So even if they want to do it in good faith, they don't have the ability to do that. They are poorly trained. They lack the machineries, and they lack the facilities to process those waste that are collected. So whether you charge the guy, you don't charge the guy, what happens is that, hey, it's not picked up, so what? So the guy has to have a way of disposing the trash. So what happens is that at one point, everybody finds a spot to go put the whole stuff. So you have this indiscriminating dumping. Somebody sees a corner right there, say, oh, that corner is there, there's nobody there. At night, you see one stop. By the time you come back 3 days later, it has turned into a huge heap of trash. That's what happens. Because here, the community and the people have no stake whatsoever in the trash. And they believe that the trash is not their problem, it's somebody else's problem. Even though everybody is complaining about trash everywhere, but then it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. But if you look at it, it is everyone's problem. And yet there's nothing anybody can do about it. And the problem keeps increasing as the population increases. But if people take that control into their hands, one, they will ask questions when those trash are not picked up at the time that is supposed to. So if it is agreed that, collection is twice a week, they're going to raise hell if on that Thursday, they don't pick up the trash in their quartier. They're going to raise hell and find out why, because they have somebody to ask, how come that they have not picked up my trash? It happens here. Where I am, in the small rural area where I am, they pick our trash once a week. And that you segregate them into organic and non-organic, right? They pick it up, just a minute, I'll answer the phone and I'll be back. Just 1 minute, I beg your indulgence. Hello? 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 Yeah, Kedi? No meeting. Hey, you go. Can't work when I'm done. All right then, bye. I'm sorry. So this trash is picked up once a week, okay? And when they fail to pick up the trash, they will leave a note and say, you know what, because of the weather or whatever it is, the trash will not be picked up on such and such a day. It's going to pick up on the next day, right? So I have a reason to raise hell if they don't pick up my trash because I'm paying for it. So that's the stake I have. So that's what I want. That's the mentality and what we want to bring into this model, where the citizens themselves have a direct stake as to how clean their environment is going to be. So the fee for service is important. And I want us to enumerate the advantages of the fee for service. One, it will bring direct employment to the different quartiers in Mutengene. I don't know how many quarters they have. The reason is that the people, the person responsible, the persons responsible for collecting the trash will come from that quartier because they understand the quartier, they know actually the geographical makeup of the quartier. The people know them. And therefore, they know them, and therefore it's providing direct employment to people in that quartier. Secondly, the person collecting the money, the fee, is also a person from that quartier. So you know that, let's say, electric line has 3 people working for them. So directly here, you're employing 3 young people or 4 young people, depending on the size and what we do from electric line. Tico Road, you're employing 10 people from Tico Road. Victoria Road, you're employing 40 people and so on. By the time you realize it, you have maybe 100 to 150 people who are directly employed as a result of the fee for service. So now society is growing because you employing them, and then they have to end up spending that money in Mutengene, and therefore both the direct and indirect effect you have indirectly on Mutengene because of that fee for service. When it comes to that fee for service, there have to be transparency, which we have to stress to them that they have to make up that board. The board has to be clear. They have to know how much is collected, how much is paid for as expenses, and how much goes into the coffers of ASDEM at the end of the month or at the end of the year. Because ASDEM will not have any other way of raising revenue other than through that way to involve in capital projects. So in the feasibility studies, we'll have to determine, is $500, 500 francs every month or every every quarter. I don't know exactly how these models can be done. In some areas, the model is done every quarter. And in some models, they do it every month. But I would suggest we do it every month because these people get paid every month. And therefore, you don't want people working at the end of the month to say you cannot pay them because you're collecting the fee every quarter. So the question we asked ourselves during that study is that is 500 francs a burden on an average home in Mutengene? If 500 francs is a burden on an average home, what would be a fee that you can charge to an average home every month, and they will have no problem paying it, and they will be excited to pay it because that their trash is being taken out? What would be the cost for a business? 2,000 francs? The restaurant has a problem with most of the waste. So now somebody's taking the waste out of them. They don't have to worry about somebody running early in the morning to look for somewhere to dump it. How much are you going to charge? So all these things will constitute the fee for service. And you can bear with me that in these days of electronic wire transfer, we don't need anybody collecting cash. But all that person employed in that cartier or with the business or doing business to business is to find out that, okay, you know what, madam, your fee is due. What is your card? And then he pays electronically. No money is collected cash to avoid, a fraud, to avoid, lack of accountability and the transparency we're talking about. And when people know very well that, the money is accounted for, the trash is picked up on time, on the regular scheduled dates, they will find it very happy to participate. Let me tell you one of the psychology we found in our studies. People get addicted to good and dependable service. I'll give you an example. The cell phone. In developing countries, there are people who would rather go without food, but make sure that they charge their phone and have the minutes to talk and make transactions. Why? Because the service of that phone is efficient. It's so efficient that they are dependent on that phone. And therefore, they are ready to make whatever sacrifice is needed, right? To keep the minutes and keep the phone running. Now, if the services were poor, intermittent, and the guy said, what do I need the phone for? I cannot even make a call, so what do I need the phone? But here, people are willing to do anything because you can be in Batibo, pick up the phone and call somebody in Yaoundé. That's what happens with services. That's why when the white man designed the services, they designed it to be very efficient so that it's so efficient that you're dependent on it. And that's what I'm trying to see here. We have a model where this system is so efficient that people look at it and say, you know what, the trash sorting is something I cannot do without. So since I cannot do without, I have to come up with that money at the end of the month without any argument. Because looking at any other option, what am I going to do with the trash? There's no way for me to put that trash. So that's what we're looking at. Now, I was thinking that we'll look at a model that we're going to suggest to ASDEM. ASDEM itself cannot run the operation because they lack the capacity to do that. But ASDEM can be part owner of what we call this private partnership model, where ASDEM owns 45% share, and then the remaining 55% is open to private investors, with priority and concession given first to people of Mutengene to have a stake in it. Now, why I'm aspassing this model is that, one, it creates a room for a better board of directors. It creates a room for efficient running of the operation. And finally, it creates the atmosphere where this can be sustainable because you have a stable hands running the operation. Because the operation is not based on favoritism, it's based mainly on being efficient and generating profit and satisfying both the shareholder and satisfying all the shareholders. Now, you will say, how is ASDEM going to raise their own money? ASDEM will raise their own money through all these things that they are doing, right? All the direct contribution that people are making. You and I will be making, because ASDEM will say, look, I'm going to this project and we need this amount. And people can now make such a contribution. Secondly, from the model I talked about, the trash collection, whatever is left after services is part of the revenue ASDEM has. ASDEM can also complement that revenue and it becomes part of their 45% shareholding in the whole thing. Meanwhile, the 55% goes to individual investors like you and I, and then we'll throw it open to all the people in the diaspora and everywhere and say, you know what, here's a big project in Mutengene. And those who want to invest, contact Mr. Steven, and then, and see what happens. That's the avenue I'm looking at. And that's the best way for it to be, to have it in competent hands that can drive profit. Because like I said, the venture is something that is highly profitable. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the black soldier fly and why, after having worked in a couple of other projects and things like that, I felt it was a way, it was a preferred way for waste management than biogas. It does not mean that biogas is not good. I would mention to you some of the setbacks that I have experienced with biogas from working with third world countries, why it has not really actually taken off the way we thought it could at a large scale level. And I will touch on it. But it's not that very well that during this time we cannot consider biogas. We would consider biogas when it's appropriate. But in consideration of biogas, you're looking at biogas not for electricity, but for generation of cooking gas. Because biogas for electricity is so complex. And I've not seen any third world country yet that has succeeded in biogas for electricity. At a micro level, at microgrid level, that is fine. But at macrogrid level, no. But at microgrid level, the cost is not worth it. Why do you spend $3 million, $4 million on a gas, on a project when actually you don't need it? But we'll talk about that, and I will put on some of the setbacks, and I will look at some of the alternatives. Now, I'm looking at black soldier fly because it is the most eco-friendly, the most economic, and most proven method of processing organic waste outside biogas. Now, it is similar to biogas in one way. In biogas, the waste is processed using anaerobic digestion, meaning that the waste is processed in the absence of oxygen to generate the methane. But in the black soldier fly, the waste is processed using oxygen. What happens is that the larva feeds on the waste, and voracious. Okay, because the larva in 14 days, right, will double in size by 2,500%. It starts as 0.25 microgram, and in 14 days goes to about 3 to 4 grams. So to gain that weight, it eats on the trash on a regular basis. But that trash itself has to be free of, has to be aerated so that there's oxygen happening. So the feeding bin has to be turned around, has to be turned around all the time. The area has to be cool so that the larva doesn't get overheated, because once it gets overheated, right, it tries to burrow under and then stop growing. So these are the things that we'll go into detail when it comes actual growing it, but I'm just trying to tell you what it is. So at the end, that frass, which is the waste left, which is about 25% of the total original weight, is what we call frass. That frass is high in methane. The reason is that when the larva is feeding on the waste, it doesn't allow it to undergo degradation. It processes it. So what happens is that if you take the same waste and put it in a biogas, you will generate the methane, because now you're going to lock up the biogas in the absence of oxygen and the different bacteria. The acidogenic, methogenic bacteria will work on the waste to generate the methane that you need. So that's why I'm saying, if we want down the road to do the biogas, right, we don't need to do anything else. All we have to do is that instead of using the frass to make organic fertilizer, we'll just turn around and use it as a feedstock for the biogas. Now, you see that, the fly, thrives in a warm climate between 24 to 30 degrees Celsius. So again, logically, our climate becomes an ideal for it. Now, in Europe and North America and Asia, most of the black soldier fly farms are indoors. They are huge indoors with climatic control. Because of their fluctuation in temperature, they now have to build huge factories where the temperature and humidity is controlled. But with us, we have the humidity, we have the temperature. So the tailwind is behind us, if you have to grow this. Now, what happens is that for the larva to grow, as I said again, it has to be where the humidity is about 50%. It has to be humid. And also, the food source has to contain about 60 to 90% water content. The reason is that the larva itself doesn't have mandible. So it doesn't have a good way of chewing the food particles. So it has to be reduced. And we can reduce that using the hammer mill to reduce the food distance to size. But again, if the food is too watery, it becomes a problem. If it is too dry, it becomes a problem. So generally, we recommend the water content between 60 to 90%, but we take the average of the two, which will come up to about 75 to 80%. 75 to 80% water content in the food is ideal. Let me give you an example. When you take the fruit and you blend it, right? You have the fruit juice. That's too watery, right? It is not good for it. Now, if you take, let's say, cassava and blend it, it's too thick. It's not good for it, right? Now, if you take gari put it in water and turn it, and it's saturated. That's how the feedstock should look like. So when you take it and you squeeze it, you see water, right? You press it, water comes out. But the gari is not like all water, but it's I don't know if you get the analogy. So
yeah.
That's how the feedstock should be when it's prepared. And you prepare it that way, it is the ideal way actually for the larvae to feed on it. And normally they feed these things every 3 days. So you know very well that in a large, I've seen operations where they are feeding it to almost 100 kilogram, 10 tons, which is 10,000 kilograms of waste a day. So now the size of the plant will not depend from the studies, actually, how much waste is generated on a daily basis. That's the kitchen waste, the restaurant waste. And then, you know, if you look at if there are any factories around there that processes food, all those things are good. Now, the interesting thing is that I saw in Peru, a guy was growing the larvae on the feces of waste of pigs and chicken. And it was interesting, but the thing to me, he told me very well that at the end, when the larvae feeds on that waste, there is no smell. But my concern was that I don't know the kind of toxins that are in the pig waste. All right? Because since we're going to use this to actually make chicken and poultry feed, we are very, very concerned of the mycotoxins that might, you know, be in the larvae. So I will not use that method. But if we're going to use the method, right, you raise the larvae, use it to prepare the feed for the pig. I don't know if you get the logic. In that way, you don't have to worry about cross-contamination. But, you know, it was an interesting piece that, you know, was raised, and I felt, you know, it was something that we could look into. So the sites to grow the larvae, I just figured it's going to be a greenhouse. Why I was looking at the greenhouse is that it will be easy to construct, because we see these greenhouses everywhere. It will be easy to construct. We will then, with the carpenters, we will then design it how we want it. The egg harvesting, we'll use local stuff, but there are some stuffs that are here that you can get. There is a research center somewhere in Denver that I've been to. They have what to call the egg propagator reactor propagation. All right, and I looked at it. It's quite interesting. It is a box like a plastic tote, right? And then it is designed in such a way that they put the attractant and the feed so that the fly comes in, because the fly will come in to lay the egg. The fly comes in, lays the egg on the attractant. The egg then drops into the incubator, and then they'll take it down from the incubator room to inoculate the feed. So again, I'm trying to look at models where we'll get these things locally. If there's a plastic manufacturing company in Cameroon or in Douala, we can parley with them, give them dimensions of the totes we want, and then we can create that thing ourselves. Now, what happens is this. Like I mentioned to you, the black soldier fly only lives for 5 to 6 days, during which it will lay 400 to 800 eggs before it dies. And that's one of the reasons why we don't see it as a common something. Because after it lays its egg, wherever it sees the attracting this thing, it dies. But in this case, it's a controlled environment, and research have proven the particular kind of mixture that attracts the black soldier fly. And it is a fruit mixture. That we take banana, we take pineapple, we take a couple of other things, we blend it, right, into a paste. It becomes an attractant, and we put it under a plastic something, and the fly, it has a very strong sense of smell, will come to that place to lay its egg. Now, the egg is harvested through the propagator, and then it goes into what we call the growing room, where we have these totes with the feeds already prepared, the one I told you we have to grind and everything, which is the house waste, right? And then we inoculate it with it. Normally, when we prepare the feed, it's interesting, and that's why I said, once we do these things, is when we prepare the feed, the thing is that we also have to add in a lot of some fiber to the feed. And the fiber acts like a sieve and also like an insulation, so that a lot of heat is not generated. So all those things go into the feeding bin, and the feeding bin is filled every 3 days. So I give you a sample. A feeding bin of 5 square meters, right, is fed with 15 kilograms of waste every 3 days. So you see now very well that it's a process where we can, you know exactly how much waste you have, how much waste, you're processing, and exactly how much fly and how much larvae you can grow. And as the wastes keep increasing, so too is your ability to grow the larvae. Now, where does we find a congruence between what we're doing and the biogas? I see a marriage there, in that we can now have a biogas plant in the facility down the road, where the organic waste now, after it has been used to grow the larva, right? The frass, which is all those that we use now, we now feed it into the into the bioreactor. Now, in the bioreactor, we have to get a simple bioreactor, because we don't need a bioreactor with an agitator, because the particles have already been reduced to their simplest molecular something. All we have to do now is to feed them with the right bacteria to move through that process to the point where we start producing the methane gas. And like I said again, that methane gas produced can now be used as cooking gas. And I believe from models that I have seen and we've read and I've worked with, cooking gas is more profitable because people need it. So it could be something that we can think about with SODAC, a parallel project where we grow the larvae, sell it to somebody else to do the fowl feed. I'm not talking about the Mutengene one. I'm talking about Usokada, if you want to look at it parallel in that way. And then just grow get the biogas plant just to generate methane gas. And that methane gas can be used for individual generators, for those who want to, and also for cooking gas. So it's also a model that you can look at it in that aspect, both in short and long term. But we know very well that a complete biogas plant will look in between about $1.5 and $2 million for a complete plant. And it's something that, you know, you get involved after maybe this Mutengene one has worked, you know exactly, because with the biogas plant, you need to know exactly the feedstock supply. Is very important, because if you don't know the feedstock supply and you give them the wrong data, the whole operation fails. And the one in South Africa failed because of the same thing. Two, the quality of the feedstock will determine exactly the amount of gas produced. So if you're telling them that these are your recipes, it is A, B, C, D, E, and then we use the theoretical calculation and say, okay, this A, B, C, D, E will produce 5,000 meters of gas every hour. And then in this quantity, and then realize very well when you go into operation that you don't have those recipes, you have something else whose methane potential is lower, the biogas will produce lower gas. And if you've already optimized the biogas to generate 500 cubic meters of gas, meanwhile, all it's producing is 20 cubic meters, irrespective of the fact that it is the same amount of waste that you're feeding into it. So it's a very tricky something that to get involved, you have to really understand the mechanism involved in it. And I believe this method, you know, gives you a good way to do that, because you know that after the larva has fed on the organic waste, the methane potential of the byproduct will almost be close to the same. So whatever we determine to be the methane potential, we can project that by the amount of tons of waste that, you know, will be fed into the biogas. So those are some of the things that your organization can look into, both the short and long term, and then we'll see how it goes. And then I had mentioned to both of you that if ASDEM doesn't want, you know, for one reason are not interested, or they're running into problems, I'm quite willing to work with you all and to take it off in a private capacity with people who might find interest in investing in this endeavor. So, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Like I had promised to you all one time, I would, you know, find time that we will talk more in detail the mechanism of growing the black soldier fly, equipment that is used, design of the plant itself, design of the farm, which you have mentioned before, Mr. Erasmus, that they have to be a demonstration farm. Because if the guy is coming to buy the fertilizer, he's telling you, how do I know it's working? You say, look over there and see the corn and stuff we have there. Look at the fish farm and see how small fish farm, we feed them with this thing. Look at the poultry. You know, he doesn't need to ask any more questions. He looks at that and say, well, damn it, yes, it's something that is I can buy and pay for. So those are all some of the things that we look at. And I don't know if there's any more question or if there's anything else we need to butt head on. And then I think I will give the floor to Mr. Erasmus to continue. I don't want to end up monopolizing the whole floor. Thank you.
Okay. I just think that since you mentioned my name the last, but I cannot actually go further to making a presentation because I have a number of observations from your presentation, and I would love that to be cleared. Yeah, so that when it is cleared, even if I have something to put in, as I will consider maybe a brief presentation somehow, or be clear on the terms. So maybe can I put my worries?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, very good. From the very beginning, you spoke on the maybe at the level of collection, I think I'm okay with the education. If there are anything that we have to adjust to meet the realities on the ground, that one is going to be clear. But in terms at the level of collection, now these are two things that I'm looking at. Firstly, when you say maybe we'll use trucks, although there's a particular name you use, and then we take them to a transition center, and then we have people to guard that center. And then later on, yeah, because you're talking of using some other thing, then before the trucks will collect them when we have filled it in those two large cans you're talking about. Okay. But what if we get mini trucks? I'm saying so because there's a company here in Bamenda that actually collects, even from my compound. Yeah, what if we get mini trucks? There are mini trucks that I think that can cost a maximum of about 3 million francs CFA. I don't know how much is that. You can convert it to dollars. Okay. Yeah, yes. What if we get 2 of these trucks? Those mini trucks, they're very small trucks, that these trucks collect. And then we do not, when we want to ask for a site, to ask for 2 sites at once, that there should be a transition and a permanent site. Maybe it's going to, first of all, because and also when you keep at the transition site, like you mentioned, they will need somebody to guard it also. But what if we get these mini trucks that they already make a program for collection? I believe that we cannot go out if we say our days of collection are Tuesdays and Saturdays. Okay. There's always that possibility that these trucks will be completely filled to full capacity to make even 1 or 2 trips. Why don't they just make this trip, collect it from the household, and go straight to the treatment center, or to the transformation center, where we can now have these bins placed there at the transformation center instead of having 2 places. Yes, so that is my own observation. That's the first one on it. And then the second way I was looking at, what do we start looking at the possibility of outsourcing collection? Although I know this may affect our income, but maybe we could have some people investing at that level. For instance, we have people who are truck owners. Somebody may have these 2 mini trucks we're talking about here, or he has his vehicles. We say, okay, invest in the collection, that his own shares should come in at that level. Or we tell him that, okay, we want to give it to you. Let's work on the base that we will mobilize the people, they will register under us, you do the collection. But for every household you collect, maybe you will be collecting on a proportion of about 70, and then we take 30. You handle your fuel, you handle your car maintenance. That's just one of my suggestions. Could we also outsource it at that level in order that it does not overburden us with capital investment? Yes. Good. I don't know. Maybe I just place the questions and then you answer them all at the end of the day. And then there was also something. Let me see. I was jotting it down. Now, we should also look at the managerial requirements. Since you're working on it, I don't know whether you're going to put that one back to us, but I think that it is up to 3 of us to look at the managerial requirements. What does it need in terms of management? We may design a very good project like this one, but if we do not put in place exactly who can manage this project, is there any academic background that this person should have? Does this person need maybe some experience already in the field? Who is going to be at the helm of this project? What about the staff situation? Exactly what type of staff do we need? Maybe something of that sort. And secondly, I would also love that to make this thing very much feasible. I know there is my presentation will be especially on the feasibility study, what we have to do, but I think we also have to design a very simple model such that you can be able to say, if we have today 1 million francs CFA, this is where we can start and end. If we are able to have 5 million francs, this is where we can start and end. Exactly, this is what we are going to be doing. And if we are to have up to 100 million francs, this is where we are able to reach, and then we can make projections at that level. But I don't want us to just go into things that are paperwork, because when the thing, when we now make reality, the gap may be too wide, which is what I think all of us are avoiding here. Good. And then there was some other thing that I want to know something. Maybe this one, as doctor was presenting, what is going to be the end result, the end residue rather, after we have maybe extracted the feed, after we have extracted the fertilizer, what is the end residue? Let us know. And also, how do we now deal with that residue? Is it something we'll now take it now back to the public dump? Maybe that we are done, then we take it to I don't know why it's council or is Zakam, because that's the company that manages waste in most of the cities in Cameroon. And also, when I want to, like, you're struggling to do something, some analogy of maybe biogas and maybe this using this black soldier fly and whatever. I want to know if we feed the larvae with this waste, actually, does it affect the maintained content of the waste? So that, because if in the process of the larvae feeding on the waste, it affects the maintained content, then we should not even talk too much about biogas. I know biogas was one of the options we suggested from the very beginning, but don't think that our organization has too much interest in biogas. We work with things that succeed. Before we got into biogas, we wanted to go in for things that would ensure effective waste management. So we are not carrying biogas on our head as if to say that that is our logo. No, we go for what can work. If this one works, even at the level of our organization, we may still be doing, we will encourage it, just like we were working with biogas, and we are glad we've made you here with this one. And then, good, you did mention too about maybe the feed for the larvae. Now, I want to know, you're saying maybe we have to do this turning. Is it that we collect this, when we collect this waste, let's say somebody has residue for aero, maybe another one had a gari and all these things, they're biodegradable. They just put them inside, we just came, we collected them, already separated. Does it mean we are going to have maybe something that will grind it into some required texture, or we would, and then when you talk about stirring, these are things I need to understand. Is it that there's still quite some work at the level of preparing the waste, or we just collect it and then you can just come and dish, put it on the kilogram, you measure and you feed? So those are the things I would love to have been verified on.
Right. The last question is all of the mechanical aspect. I think I will go through it, but let me start taking your questions from the beginning. And we're talking about the collection. In the collection, you have given 2 models. And those 2 models is one, avoiding transition stations and collecting the trash right directly from the source using the truck. Now, that is fine, but I don't understand. I don't know, and as I said again, I'm a distant away. I don't know about the road networks in the different quartiers, and whether or not these trucks would have access to the different quartiers. If they do, then that's fine. So if all the houses in the electric line can be accessed efficiently, effectively with the trucks, that would be fine. But if they cannot, then there will have to be some foot soldiers that will move it to where these trucks are and then dump it into the trucks, and the trucks can take it to the processing station. So if that is avoiding the transition station completely altogether, that is possible. Okay? So those are things that from the studies, you can fine tune. Now, in terms of how to finance the trucks, I would suggest here that we outsource it to people in Mutengene, young people who are interested in this thing, to pull their resources together and become part of this team. So in the outsource, there is a capital outlay that is given to them. So, which is a bid. You say, okay, you know what? We pay you 50,000 francs, I don't know, right? These are the things that because I don't want to pick up figures in my head. So we know what the labor cost is, because they are all the job is that they're moving it from, the quartier to the processing stations. That's all they're doing. They're not doing anything else, right? And they're doing it every day, because you're not working on the quartiers. Today it might be electric line, tomorrow it might be Boya Road, and so on and so forth. So they're working 7 days a week. So the question is that, how much do you think somebody who has a truck and put it in the road, how much does he make in a week or in a day? And then we can use that and make a projection, because even when you are assessing a fee that the businesses and the and the individuals pay, it is based on some of these overhead costs, right? So yes, the idea you mentioned is wonderful. So at least it cuts down that cost of buying a receptacle and a roll-off and roll-on truck to pick it up and say, okay, you know what, these small trucks can now, be used. The 2 trucks, one for biodegradable, one for non-degradable, right? And then they can run that route all day because they can go to 2 or 3 times. Once it's full, they go and come back. But the question is that how much is that? That can be outsourced. It can be outsourced to people in Mutengene, and it can be outsourced in the form of cooperative. That's why, and that's some of the innovation here, where you have these young men, they come in, they pull their resources together and go to the bank and get a loan to buy a truck and use for that regard. So again, it's one of the things that, you can butt head together. I give you an idea, and you are on the ground, you can now say, look, this is where we're going. But the outsourcing would be wonderful. As a matter of fact, I never even thought about it, but it would be a wonderful idea of engaging more people, employing more people, and putting out more on employment opportunities for other people within the area. I don't know if that answers the question. But
yeah, it answers the question. Although on their when I spoke of outsourcing, one thing just came to me too, that when we outsource, sometimes we give including our control to make sure that they are always there in time. But I think that when we are doing that, especially when we're signing the contract with them, we would also put in place some terms and mechanisms to ensure that they are very, very efficient and effective, because sometimes somebody may want to accumulate everything and then come once after 2 weeks on a Sunday or a day is free, that he can make up to 10 trips. So, but I think even before doing the outsourcing, we would take things like that into consideration to see, because we may also give it like that and then they go and give us a bad image and the people start feeling reluctant to pay. But I think we'll work on that.
Yes, I think with the outsource, to outsource it, they have to be your direct employees, which means you set up the conditions and terms and conditions under which they're going to operate, and then you agree on the cost on those terms and conditions. And those terms and conditions means the evacuation time, routine, and when and how. Now the question is that, like I said again, these are some of the minor logistics. Like I was thinking in this case was that the trucks come into a particular area and park, right? The guys moving the stuff from house to house, dump it into the truck. And when the truck is full, they move. They come back because they're working on that cartier all day, or 2 or 3 cartiers that day. So that's what they're going to do. By the end of the day, they finish on that cartier, and the next day is another cartier. I don't know how that schedule will be done, but however the schedule is done, it'd be efficient. That if let's say electric line is on a Wednesday that truck is there to pick up what needs to be picked up all day that Wednesday. So that it's not that the guys move the stuff in and there's no truck to evacuate them. So those are all some of the minor things that can be worked out in the process. Like I said, again, I don't know if that answers the question, but if you have anything to add, it's quite innovative.
It's clear at that level. It's clear at that level. Any other thing can come at the time of the paperwork, and most importantly, after the feasibility study.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, the next question was the managerial requirement.
Yes.
Which initially in my presentation, I said that was very, very important. In the fact that we need both the skilled and the semi-skilled managers, right? And the managers, we can train them. They don't really need to have any specific qualification, because you can also have that qualification and still don't have the experience. And you can have the experience, but the experience is not actually tailored to what this project is demanding. So we will need an account manager. We will need a waste manager, because the waste manager is the one who determines if these trucks are moving or not. who gets feedback from the neighborhood as to the complaint, right? We'll need a field supervisor, because the field supervisor now will go in all the neighborhood, gets feedback, one from the homes as to whether or not, you know, they're collecting their trash on time, whether or not will be any delay in payment. Because if the account manager is not getting the receivables the way he wants it, that feedback is gotten from the field manager, right? And then other things, like you said, you know, on the ground can be added. Now, when we move into the processing, it's a different something, which I'm going to get to it when I start answering your question on that. But you see that very well that these are the things that we need: the account manager, the waste manager, the field supervisors, the waste collectors, and the account receivable collectors. So those are the basic ones that we need initially starting. And based on the prevailing fee, we can determine exactly how much that is, so that we can start putting a budget to it. I don't know if that answers that question on managerial something.
Yes, at this level, I think it is answered, although I know this is not all, because
absolutely. It's not all.
At this level, it's okay.
Yeah, it's not all, because when we move into the processing, right? Hopefully by that time they must have constituted a board of directors of both investors and ASDEM. That board of directors now will now carve out exactly how to run the operation. I don't know if I am clear in that. And it can be a work in progress. We can be working on that. But in the meantime, the main thing now is that the first phase of getting this, you know, so that we can have a budget, like you said, something that is realistic and not something that's on paper. And then it can be, you know, explained when we do the summary. So that in itself, I think, will address that issue of budget, so that we can have a realistic budget and not something that is theoretical. So if people are paying 500 francs to evacuate the trash, I'm just using that. It might be 200 francs, I don't know. And let's say we see that from our studies, it's 5,000, it's a 10,000 household and 5,000 businesses, right? Can they make a projection here? And then let's say if salary is 5 million, and we collect 7 million every month, then it therefore means 2 million is going to ASDEM's coffers at every month. That is accountable. That is accounted for after all expenses. So it's something that we're going to be working on. I don't know if your response is still there, because I'm
still there. I'm still there. Yeah, though I turned off my video for some obvious reasons.
And then the next question, I think I was one after the lava fits on the waste. If there is any residue and how to dispose of this residue, the answer is there is absolutely no residue, because the lava fits on the waste. The liquid waste is collected as organic fertilizer that will be diluted. Then the solid waste is fresh. It has no smell. It has nothing. And then that can be processed as organic fertilizer. The next question was whether or not, when the lava fits on the organic waste, if the methane potential is compromised. And the answer is no. The reason being that the larvae feeds on the waste using aerobic digestion. So the larva needs a lot of oxygen. That's why we aerate the feeding bin on a regular basis, right? So that oxygen gets in, it doesn't get overheated. And therefore, it doesn't encourage bacteria that will bring about an anaerobic process in the bean. So at the end, the frass is still high in methane and still has its methane potential. And that methane potential can be determined based on each frass sample. So if you have a frass, at the end of the day, frass is whatever is left that the larvae has fed on after 14 days. That is the waste. At the frass, when you analyze the frass, let's say if it's a frass that was high in fat, let's say restaurant waste, in that particular batch was high, you know that the methane level is going to be higher. So if that frass was high in carbohydrate, the methane level is going to be lower, and so on and so forth. But those are the things that can be determined, in that regards. So I don't know if that answered that question, because I like to go straight to the question.
Yes.
To the question.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think the question is answered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yes, you use the residue to. It doesn't. I know after it fits on it, it doesn't actually affect the methane potential. And then I remember one of the last questions you asked was about aeration, moving aerating the feeding bin.
Yes.
That's in the process of growing the larvae. Now, in growing the larvae, right, we also have personnel. For instance, I already did, like I said, that one is easy now. I will tell you, for a complete larvae farm generating 10 tons of larvae a day, right? And we need at least 30 workers. All right? Now, the reason why that is that much is that most of the things we want to do here is mechanical, because that's how we create jobs. Here in the United States, only one person works in the plant because everything is mechanized. From the mating, after the mating, the machine harvests the eggs, take it to the hatchery, it is hatched, machine inoculates it into the waste, right? And then machine processes the waste. So everything is all mechanized, because what happened is that here is a controlled environment. The temperature has to be between 24 and 30 degrees Celsius. And here in Europe and also in the United States, the temperature varies from season to season. So for them to maintain that steady state production, it has to be in a controlled environment where they can keep the humidity at 50% or more. And then they can also have the temperature at 30 or 40 degrees, means they have to have an external something hitting it, and they have to have a source of sunlight. But with us, we have some of these things in our tailwind, and therefore it's an added advantage that we have. And therefore, rather than mechanizing it, we have, employ, people train them on how to aerate, the bin. So for instance, in a particular area, so maybe one person will be responsible for 10 bins for an 8-hour working period, right? He'll be responsible for both feeding it, collecting the liquid waste, the liquid organic waste, and making sure that his own batch is working out very well up till harvesting. And then again, you have people who have to process it, because the thing we need to do is to process it into organic as a feedstock. Now, the question is, to do that, we have to dry it, because we don't have the ability to store the larvae as fresh, because you need to get a huge refrigerator size equipment to do that. And that's a lot of energy and things like that. So it's easy to dry and then put it in a place where you can then use it now to process whatever you want to do. So, but when it gets to that, the farm itself, then we will go into detail. And like I said again, I was trying to do the manual, and because it was a manual, I went for the training. I got the manual. It's huge. I'm trying to see if I can, congest it to a point where I can share it with other folks. But I have other things that have been jamming me up, and I have projects which I don't even know exactly. I'm just working on 2 projects now for the first time simultaneously. So it's like, I'll try and see what I can do. But like I said again, I'll be with this group and try to work out, time and to make sure that we take this to the end.
Well, if I don't know if Erasmus is through.
Yeah, I'm through with my observations on doctor's presentations.
Great, Doctor, it was a great presentation. Let me just come in to ask a few questions. I know all the technical details have all been analyzed. I'm going to talk a little bit about management now, and this has to do with the politics involved in waste management in TICO, from my understanding. A lot has been discussed in the group, and some members are of the opinion that ASDEM or individuals can go into waste management because it belongs, I think according to Cameroon waste management law, it belongs to the council and a certain company called Hezakam. So last week I posted a document which of course shows that councils are authorized to carry out management of waste. And of course, I think everybody saw it. And again, I did post also activities of ASDEM, which gives ASDEM also authorization in their organization to also work in waste management area. In which case, I do not know. We did. We advised Chief Matthias to contact the mayor as to know how we could go into a collaboration, because from your presentation, it was like ASDEM and maybe some stakeholders. And you didn't kind of lay emphasis on the need of us going into collaboration with the council and see what they have to offer. So I think, what are the 2 options available? Is it that, okay, if the council councils stroke Hezakam go into collaboration, can we kind of function in that system where the 2 bodies share, they can work as a team to come out to make use of this waste management? Or this presentation, this area in which we had to sort stakeholders is independent of the council, meaning that we completely keep the council out and work as them and the investors?
Okay. I think in this case, there can be 2 models here, and all depends on the meeting with the council and to understand exactly where the limitations of what ASDEM can do with regards to waste collection. The first model will be the private-public partnership. Now, and that will be on the upstream. That's the collection and movement of trash. It has nothing to do with the processing of this trash, because the council has not been involved in trash processing, right? So it is their discretion. Now, if they want to move into it, which means that they want to invest in the process, then that's something else that has to be discussed. But let's take what is practical first, which is actually the collection and transportation of the trash, because the objective is to keep Butengene clean, because that's why the council is involved in the first place, and that's why they're involving some of these other corporations, so that they can clean up the trash and keep the place clean. Whether it's Mutengene or Tico, that whole municipality, that is sole objective. It's not to make money, but to keep Butengene clean. So here, if they want to involve in the joint venture, we can do that. Now, is the council collecting fee for this? No. If they're not collecting fee, that's fine. Then we can parley with them and say, well, you know what? We'll have our own people at the corner, and then we collect the trash. But the question here is that at this point, you have no control of the kind of trash that you get. You have no control on the quantity that you get. You might get a batch of trash and all you have is nothing that you know to write home about. And then sorting it becomes a very complex problem that after a while, the project just dies a natural death. So it is a dicey one. So I would suggest, first of all, to have that meeting so that one gets clarity. And I don't know if Erasmus has anything to add to it, but I would believe
yes,
that
obviously,
important so that we get clarity.
Yes, I have something to add. I know you people might for some time have also been out, which but we too are on the ground. Somehow we understand maybe recently how these people operate. Izakam is a company that is contracted and paid by the state directly to manage waste in most of the urban councils. But there is something, there's something. We all know that actually you can dance to the tone of the council, but the council cannot actually dance to your tone. And if we are involving the councils in this project, there is a level to which I am of the opinion that if we involve the council and reach this project, is very likely to die natural death. It's good we involve the council, we design our project, and what the first level I want us to involve the council is for that permission. And I believe that as a registered civil society organization, it is very possible for the council through the regional, even the delegation of environment that is involved to issue ASDEM that order to manage waste. Okay. Yes, that order to manage waste. But the contract of the government of Cameroon and the government and Izakam, it involves Izakam collecting waste from or identify public dumps or maybe sometimes from roadside, but not from households. So what we are doing is, good, our business could simply have, even if we were not to venture into recycling, with our licenses, we could just go collect the waste from the people for the sake of their convenience, because the council does not collect it from your house. We take it to the public dump and the Izakam carries from there. Where we begin to have problems is when we will want to go and start collecting the waste from the public dump. That one now, it would be like we're trying to challenge. But we tell the government that no, we are just offering service to the people. For their convenience, we collect their waste. But the government has to know where exactly you're collecting it, especially when it comes to plastic, because sometimes if you want to recycle, they need to know the type of recycling you're doing before you go and do something that emits more carbon. So the first, so when we are with the council, I think that their first role here is for them to grant us the licenses to do it. Once we've gotten these licenses, we can only work with them. Either they give us some subvention, which I still did not want us to count on that, because they can delay. These are people who give you fertilizer when the crops are, you're about to harvest the crop. So we, because their funds will obviously delay. There are people, today you go, it really delay the project. I can assure us on this. So so we can just use them maybe at some level like partners, not like they have anything to do with the results, but when we want to lobby for some sort of support, maybe they're from some foundations or through UNDP program, we can use the councils maybe for them to kind of back us with some sort of recommendation. So that's the only level I want us to work with the council. If not, it's good we keep them on their lane.
Okay, I think it's well articulated by Erasmus. I think we couldn't have put it any better, and I'm sure very well that advising Matthias to that effect would also be good. And I think the last thing I failed to mention was international funding. Funding would be available, but my experience with funding is that if you have something already going, right, it is easy to get funding. There is what we call the Global Innovation Fund. You know, these are the kind of projects they like to fund. But for them to fund it, they want to see exactly how scaling it would help the individual in the community. How scaling it and giving you money would improve the lives, especially of those earning less than $1 a day. So I see this project as one of those ones that would be a perfect fit for global innovation funding when the time comes, especially where you can show them that we're already doing these things. And this is what we're doing so far. And we believe very well that if, let's say, giving us another $400,000 or $500,000, I mean, $1 or $2 million, we can move this thing to a point where we can be of service to let's say 200,000 or 300,000 people by generating cooking gas through biogas or whatever it is. So those are all things that are, quite feasible, but I just don't want to put the cart before the horse. It will be something that as time goes on, we'll be looking into that. And that's why I had mentioned about management and a good management to manage these things and make sure that it is sustainable and viable. So I think, with what Erasmus has said, these are some of the few things that needs to be brought before Matthias and the ASDEM people, so that, those carve away for trash collection from door to door is given to us by the council, because we're not in any way fringing into their area of responsibility. And then once that is clear, I think we can move forward and see how it goes.
Okay, it's clear. And of course, I know we've discussed about education and community mobilization. Of course, it is clear that the implementation phase would require the services of the chiefs, the 5 chiefs of Motengene, some community leaders, women leaders, and the churches. And you did mention, you did actually highlighted something about that. And I think
yes,
that will only be when we go into implementation. And before that, that period, we'll need to kind of have a meeting, have an understanding. As soon as Chief Matthias gets a green light with the council and Minister of Environment or Health or something, I mean, those stakeholders that shall be required to give us the green light will now go into implementation, in which case we'll need these stakeholders, the chiefs and these women and so on, to be able to have some sort of meeting and understanding so that they can get those flyers to their people, to their various quarters, and sensitize them before we go into the survey. That's what I think.
And I also think it can be done simultaneously, because you see, the whole thing is this. You want to test, and Erasmus, can add, and if I'm wrong here, you want to test initially their resistance or acceptance. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't want to assume firsthand that the moment you bring these flyers in, they will just accept it and then give it to their people. So I believe initial consultation with the chiefs and to tell them this is what we're planning to do for Mutengene. And this is how we feel it stands to benefit the people of Mutengene and the people of your ward. A, B, C, D, E. Here is what we want you to do to help this work. Here is how we want you to intervene with regards to the city council, right? These are the role we want you to play. And then get the feedback. And if they're excited, then guess what? During the sensitization process, that will be easy, because they are the ones who will move around to sell it, not you. They will sell it among their people. But if there is resistance, because they are not even clear of what this thing is all about, then you have a problem now to sit back to re-educate them on what needs to be done. But I believe, and again, at where I'm missing something, that bringing them initially, in this initial phase, is more important, so they understand exactly and share the same vision with ASDEM and everybody.
Yeah, it's necessary. So I think in the absence of that, if there's another thing for us to, we will put together the summary report. Of course, with a very good the bullet points you've outlined here in your PowerPoint presentation will actually help our manager, Erasmus, our environmentalist, to put together the summary report. I know Dr. Agbo is not here with us, but he did emphasize and that we should, take into consideration all those models that is workable. And I think we're going to do just that. And in a few days, we'll give it back to you for your appraisal, and then before we forward to ASDEM.
Okay, that will be good. And I think, like you said, initially the first summary that Erasmus did actually was comprehensive. And I think all we have to do now is to actually, take up what we have done here, which is the collection, and then the subcontracting and all those things into more detail, and then present that to ASDEM. And I will also suggest before, after the meeting, before ASDEM meets with the council, that they also need to meet with us so that we can now, especially with Erasmus, I don't have to be there, so that you can also educate them on the PowerPoint that they need to stress to the council of what their role is going to be, because you don't want somebody going there say, oh yeah, we're going there to collect trash, and then the council misunderstands it and it becomes a problem. You want them to go to clearly articulate, this is what we're trying to do here. And the reason is, one, we want to make sure that cleanliness is not only on the street, but at the homes. So we're taking the trash from them, and this is part of their own community contribution, and this is what we're going to use with it. So that the council understands and know that it doesn't in any way come in direct conflict with their own responsibility. So I think those things that needs to be explained to them, and then the terms of engaging the subcontractors. You have to go into that detail. It's very important, and I think with that, we have something that is feasible. We can start putting a dollar amount. We can start putting a money amount into it, because now we know very well that from what I'm seeing, I think I tried to do what to call it a distance survey, and I realized 500 francs was very easy for any family member to come up with every month for trash.
Okay.
But it's predicated that the services are efficient. Like we said again, efficient means that if, say, this cartier is taking it on a Wednesday, that Wednesday, all those things are evacuated. If this one is on a Thursday, everything is taken. Because what you don't want is that you have those trash in people's house, and it's there stinking. So those are all some of the things that we need to do. Twice a week or whatever it is.
This presentation is being recorded. What I'm going to do is to compress it and create a YouTube link for the 2 hours of our discussion, because I can't go into WhatsApp. You can't just dump it. They wouldn't.
No.
I will compress it into YouTube link and be able to give it to ASDEM so that they can use it and pitch the project to various stakeholders.
Okay, good.
And I'm going to see how I can use also the planogram and maybe use our official language, which is Pidgin, to digest it to members. I know a lot of terminology have been used, which a common man will not be able to understand. If there's a way in which it can be done here, use the planogram and with a little with Pidgin, if it's possible for you to maybe just spend some few minutes and put the planogram, expand it a little bit, and use Pidgin to give a breakdown, and then also the end result is very important for what many people would like to know, rather than the whole process from the whole onset.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. You know what? Just while you're there, there's something I want to share again with the group. Just a minute. Let me see. There's something I want to share with the group for just a minute here. Can I? I'll stop the sharing here now.
Yes.
I can. All right.
Okay, maybe if Doctor is just trying to share something, there's something that came up. I wanted to just bring it in so that.
Go ahead. There's something that can help with what you just said.
Yes. So what I'm saying is, I think we should, at the level of the feasibility study, because that was what I was going to talk on, but we got a little into engaging into some more serious issues. But if it is possible that at the time of the feasibility,
there'll be this kind of ASDEM organizer that meet all the chiefs. You know, our people have a particular way, except the Southwest, there is different from what I know. But I know very well that we have a particular way we subject to our chiefs, especially in the Northwest, and I'm sure it should be same in the Southwest. So if we get our chiefs involved, sometimes there's a particular way that the chiefs and the quarter heads will even help us to pass this message. If we meet with the chiefs, we tell them about this brilliant idea, give them especially the end result of it. They would at one moment speak to their people in the language that these people must succumb. I think if they should hear from their own chief, they will feel like this is our project. If our chief can endorse it, it's going to be very much a good. So when we talk to the chiefs, maybe from the chief, it gets down to the quarter heads. From there, you see that they are going to be helping. They would really help us to do this. And then still on the feasibility, I don't know, maybe I would surely work on a small document. Maybe I'll share it in the group so that we look at it. And if possible, and the budget allocation, so that we just know that this is it. This is what it's going to take for us to do the feasibility, the methodology, the objectives, and the proposed end result. And if there's something that you would love to propose that be added or reduced, I think at that level is good. So that when we have the resources necessary, if possible, I will surely do even the time frame.
Yeah,
that, okay,
yeah. The timeline, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the timeline. Yeah. So that if we have whatever resources, we know that we are kicking off. And even while we are doing the feasibility, we can also be working now on the project design and everything simultaneously.
Okay. Do you see on the screen what I'm trying to share here?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. This, like, you had mentioned that people want to know the end result. I just had this encapsulated now in a small graphic something.
Yes.
And just imagine now that we have the facility, right? We have the facility now that the waste comes in. So you see where you say waste, that's the waste now that we collected from the homes. Now we've segregated them into, biodegradable and non-degradable. So this one here is the degradable. All right. Mm-hmm. Now it's going into the plant. You see where I put in just like a stretch like a house. So let's imagine that's the facility, right? So the waste comes in. What is the waste processing? The organic waste, when it comes in, we're going to sort through it. Because no matter how you do it, you might see some plastics in there, you might see some, metals in there. So we want to make sure that it is sorted. But because sorting is done on the site of collection, this part will not be labor intensive. Because once you come in, you open it, you look at it, you take a plastic, clean up. Then we then put it into a hammer mill. Now, the hammer mill now would grind it. It will grind the bigger particles. Now, Erasmus asked me, what of the smaller particles? We don't need to do anything because the hammer mill would break those into maybe about 3 centimeter size. So the rice is about less than a millimeter size. So the hammer mill will not be able to break rice particles. So what the particles that it will be able to break are the big particles, right? So now it is broken down. And then the next thing is that it goes into the feeding trays.
Yeah, Doctor, just for a while. What I asked, I wanted if you could just then kind of summarize this in Pidgin English, because our targeted audience is not the two of us here. Our targeted audience is one we present to the public. They would like to make the language you understand.
Okay. Well, I don't know how we're going to do that, but
well,
no, it's not that it's not something like that. I don't know how to clearly articulate these documents in Pidgin. It's going
no. It might not be 100% the way it's just when we select it into the house, and after all the work, we're going to get chicken feet, just that are not shared.
Okay, you know what? This is what we do. We can reduce it in very simple terms in English, where even the person who doesn't understand English will understand it.
Yes.
In bullet points. I don't know if that is.
Okay, that's right.
Huh? We can do it in bullet points. We go collect the dirty, from house to house.
Yes.
Then we'll go do this, we'll go do this, we'll go do this. Then we'll go move on to, probably I will try to do that maybe with, in bullet points of the planogram.
Yes. Yes.
I'll try to do that in bullet points and then send it back to you probably by end of next week. I will try and work on it. Maybe tomorrow I have a downtime tomorrow. God willing, I'll work on it. Maybe if I finish it, I'll send it to you and Erasmus. And then you can add whatever you need to add on it.
Yes, all right.
But, that's another, stuff I just wanted us to see exactly how the, the processing goes. And I think
you can go ahead. You can go
okay.
Ahead.
All right. So when we break down the waste into smaller particles, we should be aware of contaminants, right? Anything that can contaminate it will kill the larvae. So we want to make sure that it's well, and that's why in the processing plant we need an entomologist and we need a nutritionist. Okay. So these are all some of the experts that he was asking me about managerial. When we get to that, we're going to get to it, right? So now we put the processed waste of a certain water content. The water content should not be more than 80%.
Okay.
So I gave an analogy. It's like when you take the gari and put in water, right? And let it soak. It's not watery. But when you take the gari and then you squeeze the water comes out.
Yes.
That's how the waste should be that goes into the bin. And then we're going to add some fibers to it, like leaves and everything. That is a different something. Then we now inoculate the egg, the hatching egg, into the waste. And then we then add more waste every 3 days, right? And it's about 5 kilograms per square meter. And then this waste is irritated as the larva grows, because as the larva eats, it generates heat, all right? And you don't want that heat to turn around and start forming an anaerobic process, because it will kill the larvae, and therefore your harvest will be very poor. So you have people who irrate it by turning the waste around.
Okay. That's
the aeration. So after 14 days, the larva is ready to be harvested. So the whole thing in that feeding tray is put on a shifter, because when the larva eats on this thing, it becomes fine dust particle. So you filter it, the waste goes under, and the larva stays on top. Are you getting that?
I'm getting.
That larva now is now used. You can go further to process it as fertilizer. That's the waste, which answers Erasmus' question as to whether or not if there's anything that we're going to throw away. And then the larva is now refined. How do we refine? We refine it by using it to grow animal feed, chicken, fish, pig, and what have you. However, this particular larvae, this particular frass or the fertilizer, if we don't want to use it as fertilizer, we can now turn it and feed it into the biogas.
That's true.
Because during that process of aeration, what we're trying to avoid is the buildup of carbon dioxide and other acids that might start to form aerobic reaction. Because when aerobic reaction goes on, that's when the methane is released.
Yes.
So meanwhile, at the end, the frass still has its content, its methane content. But the methane potential depends on exactly what feedstock we had on that particular batch.
Yes.
But since we're going to get feedstock from different homes, we have fats, we have animal we're collecting from slaughterhouses and things like that, it solved that problem. I don't know if there's any question on that one. But
no,
I'll try to summarize this, using the planogram so that we can now try to both English and this thing in a step-by-step bullet point And I'll try to do that maybe in a bullet, in a PowerPoint something, and send it back to you and Erasmus, so that then we can then put that together along with the summary that he'll be building up.
It's okay. It's okay. It's well understood. It's well understood. And yeah, there's no more question.
Okay.
I think we'll just have to work on what has been assigned to us, and then we'll come out. We compress this, all the presentations, put the other one in writing as a summary, a synopsis of what we've been brainstorming behind the scene, and we present it to Chief Matthias to pitch it further, and then guide us on what to do.
Yes, yes. And at one point, I had mentioned to him that that's me, you, and Erasmus would have very much loved to have a Zoom meeting with the TICO, the mayor.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And he said, that he spoke to the mayor was interested and he could facilitate that. Then when I called him back again, I said, but then again, what is the situation with the memorandum of understanding with Sakada? He said, well, because this is the soccer season and everything, that they want to wait until the whole AFCON is over. And then when that is over, they will meet. Because I told him that was also paramount and important if this thing needs to move further. So
yes, I discussed it with him, and it was agreed that after AFCON match, we'll have time to sit down and just get the memorandum of understanding and, and get that done with. And then I didn't want since that wasn't an issue, we just had to proceed with our work and to get it submitted. The most important aspect of it here is to get an understanding with the council. And if the council says no, we are already in partnership with HAZICAM, and we don't need a third party, then we'll now know how we're going to work as associations, without having anything to do with the council or the HAZICAM people fellows.
I think what you need to do is to present what we intend to do and have the council react to it. Let the council, have the council react. So, well, what is that's what you want to do? We have no problem. Because if you want to say you want to go into partnership and the council says no, and while the partnership is not clearly understood, then it becomes a problem. I think you clearly articulate this is what we're trying to do, because that's what we're telling the people want.
Right? Yeah, well, the collaboration. I was thinking that if the council actually comes in here, right, and become a main stakeholder, they could kind of work with ASDEM and maybe with some other private investors, as you analogized. And council could make some revenue out of it to fund some of the micro projects within the municipality.
Okay, and like I said again,
for instance,
you guide him on that, because I don't think Matthias can fully well articulate what you're trying to say here. So I would very much want, if in such a meeting, that you be present in that meeting and guide them towards the whole agenda, so that at least you put in focus what you're trying to put across to the council, what we intend to gain and what the council needs to gain if actually such a operation is anticipated.
Because look for instance, most UK streets they use bricks to build most of our street here is made out of bricks. And in Uganda and Kenya today, they have used plastic, mix it with sand to be able to make these strong bricks that are used to build pavement.
Yes.
Instead of even using the portal. So and all the bricks from plastics and whatnot is all from waste management.
Exactly.
The end product from plastic recycling. So there's so many things which, if the council works with ASDEM, it could first of all give employment to the community and also get revenue that will run some of the micro projects. I mean, well, it depends. Let's wait and see.
Okay, good. So I will try to summarize this. In the meantime, Erasmus will go on to, using whatever we did today to come up with that executive summary.
Yes.
And I think we'll start looking at what budget, because sometimes these things you have to be realistic. What budget we're looking at, initially and down the line. Yes. And, you know, so with this, we can tell them, you know, this is how we feel that that revenue can be raised, you know, to further the projects, you know, down the road.
Okay.
I think we can. Yeah.
Well, in the absence of anything, I think we do appreciate your, you know, the lengthy time you've done, the wonderful presentation, all the participation here. So if we do not have another thing, I don't know, Mr. Erasmus, do you have anything to say, please?
No, it's fine. Although the other thing is that while in the report, I'll see what to do, but I think we've done a lot on biodegradable and we have said almost little or nothing about plastics, but
exactly,
I think that will be a subject on its own, but we'll try to fine tune it and see how we can make a meeting for that, maybe subsequently, because at the end of the day, we will surely not have done any much work if we handle just one and then forget about the other, especially when we collect all, we'll suddenly start having a pile of it. But anyway, I think we'll talk about that when we meet subsequently.
Yes, well taken. I think why I left that one out, I knew very well that that was one area where I will leave it to your preview to decide exactly, you know, on the non-biodegradable, what to do with it. You know the market, you know whether or not it's something that, you know, is going to be packaged and then sold to recyclable companies, or something that we're going to process on site. So that's why I left that to your own discretion. But anyway, it is subject to discussion, and if possible, we'll set up another meeting where we'll be talking strictly and solely on the non-biodegradable waste.
Yeah, the option of another meeting is best.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Oh, thank you guys very much. I mean, the last map which I just sent, you know, I went into the planogram and did 3 sections. I think you have the B sections and the C sections. The C sections is about this waste that can be, you know, like toxic.
Or the e-waste.
The e-waste. Yeah, we can't temper out that. If we have like battery and all those poisonous things, here in Europe, you know, it is put as toxic and actually stored somewhere where they know how to dispose of it. But you know, it's not something to occupy us at the moment. Today we have brainstormed only on A, which is of course is recycling waste, recycling things that are actually important. I do appreciate all of you, the time and everything. So I think. Without, maybe if there's another thing, we have to close now, and we'll sort of work on this summary in the days ahead, and then we'll send it back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And you have a nice and wonderful weekend, all of you.
I will.
Okay,
bye-bye.
So thank you. Bye-bye.